right, here we are, yet another Monday, yelling at parked cars. So tonight, my co-host bailed on me, but all two of them, not necessarily. But so TalksAlot couldn't make it. He got called into work, and Culture Casino was out on vacation. But I have Raquel Briggs, and wow, Scott just joined.
Hello.
What's up, Scotty?
What's going on?
Not a whole lot, man. How about yourself?
I'm good. Tired. I got to get up in a couple hours, so I thought I'd stop in for a little bit, though.
We won't be going super long, so it's all good.
Cool. What are we talking about?
We are talking about big data, privacy, and how the internet has all your gigabits.
So nothing important, I guess, right?
No, nothing important. And just so happens that Raquel here has a background in data.
Oh, wow. That is cool. So I want to listen to what you guys are talking to, and if I feel smart enough, I'll jump in.
All right. So I guess the best way of starting this off is talk about you, Raquel, your background, and what makes you a data person.
I have a master's in communications and technology. I also have a refereed SOI for a doctorate in communications. However, I'm awaiting funding for that. Funding's difficult to get, and getting an education is pretty expensive. So,
it's definitely not cheap. That's for sure.
No, it's not. It's the university I want to go to. It's $84,000
for the course. Like, how much does that get you?
How much does that get you? Well, that's basically your tuition that you pay, and then
okay.
And then you also
I didn't know if you meant like a year, semester, or because I was like, wow, it's gotten expensive if that's true.
Yeah, no, actually, it's about half the amount of law school, which is pretty much why I chose it.
Wow.
But yeah, it's quite expensive because, of course, during that time too, while you're doing your dissertation and you're writing your dissertation, and then of course you're defending it. At the same time, you also have to work and pay your bills. So, it's roughly double that because, you have a life to lead in the interim, right? So, yeah, so that's my background. I was an early adopter of the internet as well. I've been online since 1995. I did win a Golden Web Award from the International Association of Webmasters and Designers. And
nice.
And
wow.
I've been kicking around the can for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Scott. Go ahead.
Oh no, I wasn't saying anything. If I'm a little lag, I sorry. I was just.
It's good.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I've been, I've been on the internet a long time as well. I think I got dial-up when I was still in college, which was kind of fun, and I got my degree in anthropology, which has absolutely nothing to do with what I do for a living, which is pretty funny. And so I
it's
started.
Really funny. A lot of people who I work with in the industry, like when you're talking about web development and web design, they have a story very similar to yours. I know people who work in communications and technology, especially on the technology side. And their story is so similar to yours, and they're so high up in web development and web design. So your story is not unusual.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I graduated, I got my degree. I was like, well, there's not a whole lot of jobs out there for anthropologists. So I was like, hey, this internet thing looks pretty interesting. And originally, too, my background, when I was in college, I wanted to major in computer science, but because of my learning disability, calculus just was not in my future. And that's like one of the things you had to get, right? I mean, everything was like, learning C++. This is before they started even teaching Java in school. And but in reality, I mean, what I do, which is application development, or what I was doing at the time, there wasn't a degree plan for. So, I mean, this is like, the early stages, early 90s, whatnot. Yeah. And so, I learned to code, picked up HTML and started learning backend development, got into DevOps, and here I am now, which is
very cool.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing it now? Say that.
Oh, dude. Probably over 20 years at this point.
Wow.
Yeah. Long time.
Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
But,
I don't go as deep as you guys, but I have to say, when you said 1995, that was like the first like personally owned home computer I knew somebody had. It was my roommate in college. We, dialed up from, a dorm room, which probably out of like, it was a 13 floor, like 13 high skyscraper dorm room, dorm setup. And probably 3 people were connected to the net back then. So it was definitely rare. But yeah, I've always loved to play around with it. I actually was a help desk guy for a while and was going to go, I think they called it, what is the MCSE, the Microsoft certification.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I changed focus completely, but I enjoy actually listening to people like you guys talk because it's like a foreign language to me. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy how much, computers have changed. I mean, the first server I worked on wasn't Unix. It was Windows NT, because like most of the places I worked at was like Windows based. And I mean, so much has changed. The internet has changed. I mean, back in the early 2000s was, I wouldn't say it was like the heyday, but it was before like all the normies got online.
Yeah.
And it was right around the time where the normies started getting online because they started rolling out broadband. Mm-hmm. And yeah. Right. And here we are now with the lovely dystopia of social media that we enjoy on a daily basis.
Better or worse than ICQ?
I'll be honest with you. I think ICQ is better because you get to choose who you talk to, right? I mean, with social media, I mean, it's like you meet somebody, hey, what's your ICQ? Okay. And then you add them, you friend them. And it's not like Twitter where everybody can see what you posted. So if you say something dumb, back then,
right,
it was just between you and the other person, right?
Board, right?
Yeah.
Like the old message boards, yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, the people who you talk to were very similar. They had a lot of similar interests because it was either nerds or geeks. And so when you were talking to somebody, they really knew what they were talking about. It was so easy to get canned code back then. If you wanted to do like a Black Lab applet or something like that on a website, you could just go in and ask somebody where to grab some canned code, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, just go here." And so it was so quick because you could reach out and everyone knew what you were talking about. And then, like Comix division said, then the normies came on board. And
yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny because like back then you used news groups to get your porn.
Okay, well, I never did the porn thing, but that's probably because I'm a chick. I don't know.
But yeah, but that's also how you get your downloads too. You get your wares that way. And as David Blair is pointing out, IRC. Which I was a bit of a later adopter on with IRC. You had to know what you were doing to use IRC.
And who's the manufacturer of IRC? Wow, I am in like the dark here. Who's the manufacturer?
Well, IRC was just a you install the client and you can set up a server, and various hosting companies would have like an IRC server you'd log into, and
gotcha. You log into a virtual server.
Yeah. Okay. So it's just like ICQ, except there was no nice GUI interface. It was all text based.
Good old GUI.
Yeah,
GUI helped, man.
Yep. Oh, True Rock Creations is bringing up the frog in a blender. Oh God, was it Joe Cartoons? That's who did that, Joe Cartoons. But one of the things that we're want to talk about tonight is the whole thing with data privacy. Big data. All the stuff that's going around, and just how we as human beings have been kind of commoditized by this data collection, and which is, kind of scary if you think about it. But it's like so we didn't think about it at the time, right? It's like, hey, Facebook, it's free, right? You sign up, it has ads, you get to meet people. There's your friends and family, share photos, cat memes.
And then you quickly find out that Facebook is the most expensive app you will ever use. It's the most expensive social media you will ever use because, you're giving it your life.
Yeah, it really is. Well, it makes sense too. Why it's like you're willfully feeding it your information. These are the things I like. These are the movies I like. These are the TV shows I like. This is the music I like. And what's kind of frightening about it is so they start kind of building up this profile on you.
Right.
And
would you say, I'm sorry to interrupt your comics, but would you say like these social media sites are like the pinnacle of what like a marketing group would have done back in the day? Like they get information without even trying because you're offering it up like nonstop.
Yes.
Well, I think it's a little bit more nefarious than that, though, because of course you have the NSA and they're watching the things you're doing, including gaming online and things like that. And then you have corporations, and then the corporations are taking in your information and they sell your information to other corporations.
Yeah,
right. So it becomes
that's kind of the issue.
Yeah, it becomes very pervasive. And another thing that people aren't aware of is usually those third-party quizzes that you're partaking in, and they can be quite dangerous because what they're doing is they're culling data that seems innocuous, but when the data becomes aggregated, and that is when you take an algorithm and you draw all of that information together into one dossier. A picture emerges, and sometimes, the golden ring for this data aggregation, oftentimes for criminals, is to know basically what all of your passwords are going to be. They know your dog. You know your dog's name. They know your dog's birthday. They know your secret questions because you talked about the town your mother was born in and the first car you owned and so you divulge all of this information and you believe that it's happening very sporadically and it's happening in all of these different places. And you're not made aware of the fact that it's actually being aggregated by corporations and information systems, and a dossier is built on you.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. So there's a few chats I want to get to real quick. We have this one from TM Martin for 10 American Greenbacks. Hail Comics Division and panel. What's your hot take on intersectionality between big data, the vaccine, the rollout, and chatter? It's got a chip in it. Well, I didn't hear about the whole thing with it having a chip in it, but
yeah, that's been going on for a while now. So and it's mostly derives from like Bill Gates being involved, that they want to vaccinate everyone to implant a like nano chip in you to somehow control you in the long run, which one of my buddies from work subscribes to wholehearted. That's going a little far for me, but
yeah, it depends on the vaccination needle. Those things are pretty big. Bill Gates is pretty scary with the vaccination thing. There are other nefarious ways of doing that. Doesn't require chipping people.
I just don't think that the public actually is aware of how much information we already have on them as individuals.
You already have a mobile tracking device right here. I mean, it's called your phone.
Exactly. And a lot of times it's even worse than that, Comics Division. You and I have spoken before about people using the Fitbit and people using the Apple phone and loyalty cards and
cards is a huge thing.
Filling out quizzes and CCTV monitoring and emails and software that can detect what you're reading online if you're actually reading it. So once again, to pull this idea down from the clouds, when I say aggregated data, that's something that we use in communications and technology to describe the process. But aggregated just means to draw all that information together and put together the story of that person's life. And I think if people knew that this involves what they get from Starbucks, what they put into Google, what they said when they were gaming the other night, what they put on their phone, I think that they would realize that it would be quite silly to waste all of that time putting microscopic data tracker
nanochips.
Yeah. I mean, it's fun. I mean, it's fun to talk about this kind of stuff because it's very sci-fi. But the problem is that social media is terrific at proliferating conspiracy theories that are actually less frightening than the reality. The reality is actually far more terrifying.
It really is. It's like the whole chemtrail thing. My mom's really big into chemtrails, and it's like, what they spray in the air? They're doing it because of mind control. Blah blah blah. It's like, well, first off, that's not a very efficient way of distributing mind control. Drugs. You could put it in the water supply. That makes the most sense. But there's a very good rule of thumb that you can use when it comes to conspiracies. If it's something that could be done that would affect the rich and powerful, then they're not going to do it. It's like, it's like the whole mind control thing. But as far as the intersection between big data and the vaccination, okay, so it took them 6 months to roll out this vaccination, and we know there's going to be side effects, right? Mm-hmm. Big data that is like a perfect way of being able to go and track and analyze the data of things with the vaccine. So again, it kind of comes off as being kind of conspiratorial, but in reality, if you're having issues, you want to make sure that they're being reported and they have the ability to go through and parse through all this data. This is like really where the power of big data kind of comes in with being able to like chart and track things and find patterns. But at the same time, it's pretty scary in the wrong hands.
I think it's also distracting too, because it takes away from the billion-dollar industry of deforestation and eating endangered animals. And this is why we keep on having RNA viruses and RNA diseases introduced into the human population. So rather than addressing this bushmeat and these wet markets and this terrible thing that's going on all over the world, I mean, they're shipping bushmeat into Canada, they're shipping bushmeat into the United States. It's a multi-billion-dollar global industry. And it is the chief way that we are being infected with these terrible RNAs.
For the people listening that don't know what bushmeat is, can you describe that to them?
Well, bushmeat is basically, so you go into the jungle and you get endangered animals, usually bats, chimps, primates, and you smoke them. And they're a delicacy, and they're definitely a delicacy in China. So they are shipped to China. Of course, it's illegal. Many of these species are endangered. They're also shipped to Canada and to the US. And unfortunately, we know that they carry zoonotic disease. And zoonotic disease is when there is a terrible virus that exists in an animal. And when we come in contact with its blood, or we imbibe it, or we eat it, the disease can jump the species. And of course, that's what's happening with these RNAs. So we see this in HIV, we see this in Ebola, we see this in COVID, we see this in bird flu, swine flu. And so it's very important that the world stay focused on the actual problem, which is addressing this bushmeat crisis, addressing this wet meat or these wet markets, and stopping the global trade of endangered animals that have been smoked in the bush, that are bringing us these zoonotic diseases that eventually one day, like, I don't want to frighten anyone, but, leading scientists are quite upset and quite terrified that we're going to have something like HIV or Ebola go like COVID. It will become airborne and it will be highly contagious. And it's super, super scary. And people need to stay focused on that, because man, that is way more frightening than some silly story that they tell themselves on social media about a vaccine.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that's so funny is that when I talk about conspiracies with people, it's like, why do you believe this when this actual thing is going on? It's like the whole thing with like, I was talking about Prism before, and it's like, the government doesn't need to listen to your phone conversations. They just need to know what your pattern is, right? That's how they track things. So destroy all computers and internet. No, we're not advocating that at all. But the thing is that you have to be cognizant
of the way that your information is being used against you, so that you can, so that we can come together and make laws that make sense and demand our privacy, hold onto our privacy and our safety. You know, one thing that I see again and again on the internet, people are talking about this webcam security, and people think that this is a joke. You see it, I saw it even on Doomcock's show the other night. Somebody was just like, oh yeah, piece of tape over my camera. But they don't realize that it's actually true. You know, Zoom just issued a patch because there was a third-party malware on Zoom that was allowing them to surveil people through their cameras. So if Mark Zuckerberg and the director of the FBI have a piece of Scotch tape over their camera, and they've seen footage from the dark web on fetish sites and people using the roving camera to get information on you, like if you have a diploma hanging in the background, if you give away your passwords, if you have your passwords near your computer, the webcam security is real, folks.
It absolutely is.
It's real.
I mean, that's why whenever I get done with my stream, first thing I do, turn the camera off and I put the cap on.
Yes, me too. Me too. Because it's bad enough that our phones are listening to us and they never stop. But I have concern for, usually the reason why I bring it up with women especially, is it's not good to bring your cell phone in with you into the lavatory. Yeah. And you might think that would be disgusting and who would want that, but it's actually a fetish thing that people pay for on the dark web. And if you're going to bring your cell phone in with you into the ladies' room, please make sure that you have a piece of tape over your lenses, over the camera lenses, because it's bad enough that they're listening. I mean, Comics Division and I could sit down one day and we could go over to Scotty's house and we could talk about how we like chinchillas and how Scott wants to buy a chinchilla. And just out of nowhere, we say chinchilla 50 times. Well, then all of a sudden on all of our phones, suddenly chinchilla shows up.
Yeah,
right. First search result, right? Like, have you ever noticed that you're talking with friends, you go to type in some crazy thing like, you know, what does scrumdiddlyunctious really mean to Wonka? And the first letter you hit, the whole thing comes up already.
Yes, because it heard you. Yeah. And you know, and this is a fact of life. And so the reason why it's important to discuss these things and to eschew, to reject the conspiracy theories, is because if they keep us in a constant state where, and by they, I mean the Silicon Six, there are not going to be any boogeymen in this cast. For me as a scholar, I'll tell you exactly who these people are. And they want to keep you in a state of not knowing whether it's true or not, so that you're not willing to challenge your terms of use, to challenge your rights and your personal freedoms. So, you know, that's why it's just so important when we're talking about Amazon, Facebook, Google, Netflix, Apple, and Microsoft. We're talking about the Silicon Six. These are the most powerful people in our world today, and they're operating the most powerful propaganda machine human beings have ever had.
Yeah, that's the scary part, because a lot of this just started as, how do we market to people? We find out what they like, what they don't like. And then therefore we have the targeted ads. That's how a lot of this started off. And then you start seeing how it could be used to manipulate people. So,
I mean, even manipulate, you know, political views, social views. Like you said, it's almost the repetition of it. Have you ever seen, now, like, the one thing I hate about the word conspiracy is there are conspiracy theories out there, but the word has been used and thrown around so much that even something with an intelligent bite to it, a question you have about technology, if someone labels it as a conspiracy theory, well, then people automatically now relate that to, he's a wacko.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's because language, there's a, Language has a very obstreperous nature. It's constantly changing. It's constantly evolving. And so we have a cumulative connotation. And so now conspiracy theory now has the accumulative connotation of when you put those two things together, it becomes an idiom. And now you're wearing a tinfoil hat. So it's unfortunate because what it does is it takes away diction. It takes away the vocabulary that lay people need in order to discuss these kinds of issues. Not everybody goes to university for, 10, 15, 20 years, like, people in my circles. People are just grappling with knowing what they need to know to protect their own information and their own interests, their own rights and personal freedoms, and their own rights to privacy.
Yeah. So going back to the original question about, destroy all computers and internet, what we really need is better policies coming from government, protecting your data and protecting your rights as an online citizen. That's the biggest issue right now that we're facing as modern humans is our privacy, right? And that's the thing that apparently everybody is fine with not protecting. It's like for some reason.
Bizarre, isn't it? Bizarre,
yeah,
isn't it? Because
exactly.
when you go on social media and you listen to these conversations and you're a fly on the wall in these conversations, and a lot of them, I do have to say, it's also really important that there is a sweet spot in media, right? There's a sweet spot in social media when about 200 people follow you. They're probably your real friends. But when you start to get up into really super high numbers, you should know that a lot of those are bots. A lot of those are not human beings. So it's very important that if you read something on social media that you think is suspicious, that is saying something that is frightening you, it's best to go and run those people through an algorithm. And you don't have to be Comix Division or Raquel Briggs in order to do that.
You could be me.
You can go. Yes, Scotty.
Yes, exactly.
Scotty is actually my friend in real life. I have a private Twitter account, and Scott and I are actually friends. And one thing Scott knows is that I'm constantly trying to teach people about different bot and troll applications that are free that you can use on the internet. And one that is very reliable and can even provide you with a dossier on the types of things the person says and the types of abuse the person has participated in, and whether or not they're a part of a botnet or they're a human being, is Bot Sentinel. Bot Sentinel. Yeah.
Interesting.
So if you're feeling frightened, that's pretty reliable. There are lots of troll bot softwares out there. So you can tell whether or not somebody is a good guy or a bad guy or just isn't even human. And that's very important. Scott was talking about how, they throw the word around until so many accumulative connotations come along that you can't use it anymore. Well, troll and bot are actually the words we need to describe these bad guys, these nefarious entities, these terrible things. So get in there, dig in. If you're going to trust something somebody says, go and find out if they're actually a person, because we have a lot of Russian, Iranian, Chinese bots. We also have bots from within our own countries that their sole purpose is disinformation, and that's to set you on a path of confusion, to frighten you, to make you believe things that you shouldn't believe, and they're quite effective.
So I just ran my account through Bot Sentinel, and I came up at 11%. I'm like dead smack in the center of normal.
Yeah, so 11% is actually a terrific reading. 11% usually means that you're willing to challenge what other people say on the internet. So, and you've perhaps used profanity. That
no, I use a lot of profanity.
Yes, and it can also be derived from the fact that that you may know people who are bots or who have bots in their blockchain, and this is why blockchain is so dangerous. Is people will allow anyone on the internet to follow them, and so when you get attached to a blockchain because of the people who you follow or who follow you, you may be completely innocent, but you are now a part of a blockchain. which is
Oh,
why
I've been blocked before. I've been
Yes.
involved in a blockchain because of like people like Dan Slott and the various other comic book pros that were very anti-Comics Gate, and I followed certain people, and that's how
Yeah.
I ended up on a blockchain. So
Yeah. So this is where your 11% is coming from, right? So, and this is also why it's very important that people focus in on cultivating real relationships with real people. I get
Mhm.
dozens of requests to be my friend every day, or to follow, or whatever you want to call it, on Twitter, and they all go into the poop pile. Just
you're
no.
definitely smarter about this than I am.
Yeah.
Well, you,
I mean,
well, this,
I'm at
I'm not.
23%. What does that say about me?
Oh, Scott. Well, folks at home, even though Scott has a very high rating, I want you to know that Scott is a real person. I know he's a real person.
Yes.
I've seen his face. Scott,
Yes.
however, really needs to go through his follower list on Twitter.
I guess so. I guess
And-
so.
That's the other thing too. I don't follow everybody that follows me. So typically, if I have an interaction, and it's quite a bit, I'll end up following somebody back. But so this is interesting. I have quite a few things coming from Max Mercer. He has
Okay.
a question directly at you. We'll get to in a sec.
Okay.
Why isn't there an open source OS for smartphones a la Linux? There is. As a matter of fact, the Android platform is built on top of that. There are definitely open source OSs for phones, but the majority of the ones that you buy from a store is closed source. Like, the iPhone. I have an iPhone, and that's obviously closed source. You can't jailbreak your phone. That's something I've been considering to do.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things that we need to watch out for, and this is something that's been coming up more and more and more, is telemetry services with operating systems. Every operating system out there has telemetry services, which means they call home and they send data back. Now, typically this is done in the form of, oh, your computer crashed. Do you want to send this info to Microsoft?
Yeah.
And this is where they're going to get you on the hate speech stuff in the future. So let's say you're using your computer, you're using Microsoft Office or the internet, and your operating system knows that you're saying things that are not appropriate. That's where they can go and say, you know what? Because you technically don't own a license, you lease it. We're shutting your computer down. We're bricking your computer. That's where they're going to get you. And that's the thing that is scary. And also he brings up, was Terry Davis murdered? I actually have no idea who that is. Anybody?
Yeah, no, not off the top of my head.
Yeah. And
no,
Max,
I don't know.
And Max also says to ask you about Vault 7.
Okay, well, just so you know, my expertise is media, technology, and society. So I don't know anything about Vault 7. Another thing about me is, because I'm a scholar, I know that there is power in saying I don't know. So I could quickly Google that for you, but to tell you the truth, as a scholar, I would need to look it up. I would need to do research on it. I would need to look at peer review and establish an opinion on it. So I can't speak to it. I don't even know what it is.
I just did a quick Google search of it. I'm not familiar with it myself. Vault 7 is a series of documents that WikiLeaks began to publish back on March 7, 2017, that detailed activities and capabilities of the United States Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, to perform electronic surveillance and cyber warfare. I wouldn't be surprised. This is basically what the CIA does. So going back to the whole thing with Prism and Echelon before that, these are all things that were eventually leaked out to the public. Of course, Snowden is the one that leaked out what happened with Prism. Before that, the Australians back in the 90s leaked Echelon, and which was funny because if you ever watched Alias, the TV series Alias by J.J. Abrams, they mentioned Echelon a lot in that series.
Mm-hmm.
But, by that time, it was already pretty much well known. But there are spying programs, Prism being a domestic one, where they're basically harvesting your metadata. And I think, back when Obama said, we're not listening to your phone calls, we're just, collecting metadata. Well, that metadata is what defines you as a human being. They have an idea of what time you get up. They have an idea of, who you're talking to, because like, for example, most people, when they were working a 9 to 5 job, they would call their wife, their spouse, whatever. Hey, I'm heading home. Do you want me to go to the grocery store? So they are able to go and have these patterns on people's behaviors. And that was the metadata that they were so downplaying, that they were collecting. And a lot of it is that they're looking for patterns. And when people start deviating from those patterns is when they start to go and start investigating people. It could be that they're having an affair. It could be means that they, somebody approached them to do some sort of espionage, be it corporate or government or whatever. I mean, there's all sorts of things that, looking at your spending habits, all these things, this is the data that, they're collecting, which is, pretty frightening.
So what he's trying to get at, folks, is like, you have to imagine what aggregated data looks like when it's applied.
Yes.
So I want you to imagine what happens when you get up in the morning. So when you get up in the morning, you pick up your phone, you go and you death scroll the vid crisis on your social media. Perhaps you fill in a quiz. You go on your email and you receive coupons to shop online. You go on Google and you look up a couple of words that your friends used on social media that you're not familiar with, and you're horrified by the results. Mm-hmm. And then you take your little reporter, your little phone with you, and you get into your car. And most of us have a car where the car is collecting data on us. The car knows where we're going. It knows who you've called from the interface in the vehicle. It's basically like the kit of old. Then you stop off at Safeway and you buy groceries and you go through with your loyalty card and It tells Safeway everything you bought and it's assigned to your name. And then you go out into the parking lot, you get into your car and you drive to Tim Hortons or Starbucks. And there you use your loyalty card once again. And, and it's collecting that information. Maybe you'll stop off at a mall and you'll buy your wife a gift or your child a gift. You'll be seen on CCTV cameras. So this is what aggregated data looks like in real life.
Yeah,
right?
It's pretty frightening. I know that we have some super chats come in, and I'll grab those. Let's see. I think it was this one from Talk to Man Flew for $5. If metadata defines me, then I'm a 70s porn film. My life stuck so bad, even the man doesn't care about me. LOL.
I love you, TMF. I think that you're the bomb.com. You're such a sweetheart. You are so good to the whole streaming community, and you blow up the chat, and you're so caring and so bright and so fun. Don't be hard on yourself. But yes, all this crap is horrifying.
Yes, it absolutely is. So I know I got a few comments, and I pulled up for a second, but I can't find it now because I scrolled down. Why I'm dressed up is because I went out to dinner with my parents tonight. So that's the reason why I'm not wearing the usual t-shirt. I just didn't bother taking. No, thank you. I figured it'd be a nice change, right? It's actually gray and not black, even though it pretty much blends in. It makes me look like I have no neck anyway.
But yeah, getting back to that point. So this is about consumption patterns. And you need to realize that this is being done at the exabytes level now. So it's not just the NSA. It's not just the CIA. It's not just the government CCTV cameras or corporate CCTV cameras. Now there's a convergence of this data. They're sharing the data, they're buying the data, and they're building a dossier on you.
The other thing too that's scary that I saw is that I noticed that whenever I pay for groceries, I'll get coupons, and because I buy certain things, I'll start getting coupons for those items. And I don't think you need to have the little fob anymore, or the little slip that they use to keep track of your frequent purchases. They're now using your debit card.
They are. They recognize you through your debit card and through your MasterCard. I actually thought that you were going to bring up what I was talking about today, or not today, but yesterday or the day before. I had posted an article that was recently published that was discussing the peer review research in the psychiatry division of, I think, JAMA. I read a lot of medical journals, but I think it was the Journal of the American Medical Association. It's on my Twitter. And so they're all talking together about how they're going to start using different punctuation algorithms to help diagnose people with mental illness. So I was talking at length on my Twitter about this and engaging folks on this because, of course, as a comm and tech scholar, I find it quite worrying. I think it's pretty scary that your boss or an insurance company could pay a company to do a dossier on you and then have a corporate psychiatrist diagnose you with some type of mental illness due to your interplay or your participation on social media. So
not just that. I mean, think about it. If you could potentially hold certain political views based off of things you put online, and they could do a psychological profile saying, oh yeah, this guy looks like he could be a Trump supporter. Let's not hire him, or let's fire him.
But Comix, we're actually talking about people being diagnosed with a mental illness without ever having seen a doctor, and
that's also frightening.
And it being applied to you in this dossier that you never get to see. So if you would like to share
that is like some serious Orwellian shit. Yeah.
Well, if you would like
let me
to
ask
see
a quick question. Would that
be peer-reviewed scholarly journals that I've posted to my Twitter? I'll go and get those and I'll give them to you on Twitter. Scotty, I'm sorry for interrupting you. Go ahead, sweetheart.
Please, I'm actually really enjoying listening to you guys. So they circumvent HIPAA laws by doing that. So it's not technically your diagnosed because you did not see the doctor, but they figured it out, employers and others, and use that information against you, but they don't actually diagnose you, do they? Like put a diagnosis on you.
Well, there's actually one doctor that was involved with this latest study that was published in the magazine that wanted to start a discussion in the scholarly community about moving forward with. So I'm paraphrasing here, but this is quite close to the wording. This treasure trove of information on people with mental illness, using under the guise of preventing suicide, bulimia, anorexia, things like this. So they are, in fact, pushing for an official diagnosis, Scott. Just let me get that. Let me just get that for Comix division.
Yeah. It's funny too, Comix, because one of those things people will try to label you conspiracy theories is how
you're mentally ill.
You're mentally ill. So the first thing they go to is, that guy had mental illness. Most people in the world have some form of, a mental illness if they're a little manic or a little depressed once in their life. This could be used against you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Think about if something like that happens and you go to fill out a background check to purchase a firearm, and that comes up, and that you were denied because of that. It's kind of frightening.
And that's the other thing that gets you is that the government you would hope would step in and they pass some legislation, but the truth of the matter is they can use, this is better than any other pollsters. This is better than canvassing the neighborhood. If that house is a Democrat, but 2 down is a Republican, then why waste your time going to that? Paper, time, man hours. It's frightening.
Yeah, it really is. So we got some additional questions coming in from Tree Rock Creations. Part 1, a coworker who works in a different department asked me how to shop online for Christmas presents without advertisements showing what she was purchasing. You can definitely get things to block ads. There's a thing called Ghost you can install in your browser that tries to hide your data. There are various plugins you can have installed in your browser to make sure that this data is not being sent. There's also incognito mode that is built into most browsers.
Can we also talk about how we need to, I'm just doing two things at once and I'm really not good at multitasking. I just sent you the article over Twitter. Can we also talk about cookies, about educating people on cookies? You're not beholden to accept all cookies. I want you to get in there when they say, is it okay or would you like to review it? I want you to go ahead and click, I want to review it. And if you want to gain access to an article, if you want to use something and they say, okay, we use cookies, I want you to go in and look and see exactly what information they are asking for. And I want you to deselect everything that is invasive. Okay, folks, get rid of those cookies. Only use the cookies that are absolutely needed in order to keep the information free.
Maintaining session stuff is all you really need.
And that's it. That's it. If you want to read the Wall Street Journal for free, you know what, sweethearts? Do it. I do it all the time. But I also make sure that I'm managing those cookies. And I also do a massive dump every once in a while. And you should do a massive dump as well. Just dump it.
We'll get to that in a second. I got a few more comments to go through. I started buying silver and gold coins and bars based on what you said in last week's show. That's good. I encourage everybody who has the means to do so to do that. I actually have a video coming up on my second channel called the 15 things you need to start doing before 2021. And sneak peek, that's actually on the list. But it is kind of more prepper oriented, but I feel that this is something that people should definitely start doing because if Joe Biden is the Great Reset candidate, I think we're going to be looking at some tough times, and there's a possibility of shortages coming up. So,
well, that's another thing there, Comix. It's again, you had to preface it with that little prepper, saying prepper because you don't want people to think you are a prepper.
No, I am a prepper. I'm absolutely a prepper. Well, I'm not hardcore about it, but it just 2020 was the year of the prepper. I think a lot of people that thought preppers were crazy when they showed up to the store one day and found that the shelves were vacant. Suddenly they stopped looking like the laughing stock. Right. I mean,
they went in the woods for Uncle Benji.
You could definitely overdo things. Right. That's with anything, but there's nothing wrong with being a prepper. Just don't go crazy. Don't devote your life to it. Still, you need to go and live your life.
Well, the one thing that I will say is this. I don't believe that there's any great reset coming, but I will say that there are a few things that people need to be aware of. Prepping is very good, and we're probably the only generation that hasn't prepped. So prepping is actually the norm.
It was the norm.
It was the norm because, of course, we didn't have a society of convenience. So as far as prepping goes, you really should have 2 to 4 weeks worth of food in your home at all times, and you should be rotating it. Now, as far as the Great Reset goes, of course, I don't ascribe to or I don't believe in the Great Reset. I know many people are frightened by it, but I will tell you this.
Written by the guy that's founded the World Economic Forum. This is by Klaus Schwab.
It sounds like a Bond villain.
I understand that, and a lot of people are citing that book, but at the same time, you have to understand that in communications technology and econ, we've already been talking about this for about 10 years.
We have. Well,
me and my colleagues,
Schwab has been talking about for a pretty long time.
We've already been talking about this second industrialized revolution. So I want you to imagine the industrialized revolution and what it did to our society, how it changed jobs, the way that we communicated. I want you to think about the printing press and the telephone and microwaves and how much that changed our life. It gave us a life of convenience. Well, a second revolution is coming. It's a digital revolution. And it is widely known in the scholarly community. So this is no tinfoil hat stuff. This is scholarly stuff. And it's not being done to sell a book. This is scholarly information.
I'm not going to disagree with you because there are definitely
by 2034, 47% of jobs are going to disappear, and no government in the world has a plan for it. Now, on
Oh yeah,
top of that,
you're absolutely correct on that too.
now, on top of that, there is another indisputable figure. 87% of the jobs that will exist in 2040, 85%, I hope I said 85%, have not been invented yet. So I want you to sort of digest that. I want you to marinate in the juices of that and think about that for a minute. 80
Oh yeah,
that's
being that I work
crazy.
in automation, specifically server automation, computer automation.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not. This isn't news to me.
Yeah.
There's a different component to that. It all kind of plays together, and definitely you go through different technological revolutions as we discover new things, and we're definitely going to hit the digital revolution when we start seeing self-driving cars. That's definitely going to kill the trucking industry, putting those types of people out of job. We were already seeing kiosks being put into restaurants such as McDonald's, and it's eliminating those types of jobs.
Minimum wage jobs.
Minimum wage job. Well, that's the reason why they started doing that too, right?
Yeah.
Because they raised the minimum wage.
Yes. Well, that's where universal basic income is coming into play. And the thing is that I'm not so convinced that there's a reset coming so much as we're going to fall off of a digital cliff, and no one is going to have jobs. And we think about that 47% of jobs.
There's going to be a lot of issues, I think, coming for the future.
85% of the jobs not created yet. Comix, like, think about this. Where are people going to work? Where is half the population going to work?
I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. But hang on, let me get to the super chat. We can
Okay. Go.
Okay, so part 2. Apparently, she was sharing a computer with her husband and found out what she had purchased because of ads.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean that. Like I said, there's definitely lots of like ad blocking software, stuff to make sure your data is not being shared. Cookies is another thing. That's how the ads thing work, is because of tracking cookies. But yeah, I mean, back to the whole thing with the Great Reset and automation. And I was well aware of the issue with automation before this book was even written years ago. And
exactly.
But what Klaus Schwab is wanting to do is it's I wouldn't say it's worse than that. He's definitely pushing the agenda. He's using COVID to try and push the agenda. It's not the purpose of the stream, obviously, because we're talking about big data. That's the purpose of my other channel.
Yes.
But the main thing is that you do need to be aware of, yes, the world does change as new technologies, new disruptive technologies come into place. Obviously, it hasn't always been a big deal. I mean, look at the phone system, how we used to have operators, people who would plug, the different switches in so you could call the people down the street or across the city. Connection. Yeah, exactly. That got, those jobs were eliminated through automation, but
they were
during that time period, there are other jobs that came in to replace those jobs.
That is absolutely correct. That is the dangerous thing, is that none of these jobs that are going to go extinct, unlike historically, we've had jobs to replace it. Well, now we don't. And so, that I think it's the Dell report that quotes the 85% of jobs haven't been created yet. We'll see. I mean, I'm not hopeful. I think that it's terrible that people are grappling. They're searching around sort of greedily for these conspiracy theories, when in all actuality, we should have our governments at the lash.
Yeah, not a conspiracy theory
right now. Well, they should be pilloried right now, because they had the opportunity to prepare us for this, and they haven't. And it's not all their fault, because it did encroach upon us much quicker than we anticipated. We thought this was going to take a hell of a lot longer. Sorry if I said hell.
No, you're fine. I say fuck live all the time.
Apologize for hell. That's fucking adorable.
Yeah. Okay, this makes me feel like I should.
I'm okay.
Yeah, you're completely fine. Okay, this makes me feel like I should move in the middle of nowhere and live like the 1700s. Yeah, I feel that way too. But the
what
main
we've been doing. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Comix.
No, I was gonna say, working in technology, there's definitely times where I feel like you should become a Luddite. But the main thing is making sure that you are not giving companies information that they don't need. And that's why I talk about the telemetry services thing with computers is we need to make sure that we go and we're not allowing this stuff to report our information to companies. Yeah, I mean, this is the things that I think most Americans are blissfully unaware of when it comes to this stuff. The fact that you are being commoditized.
So we talked about the phone. Leave your phone at home. Stop wearing a Fitbit. Do not wear an Apple Watch. We talked about the cookies. I brought up the cookies. Please manage your cookies. There are also other things that you can do, folks. You don't have to move to a cabin in the middle of nowhere. Leave your phone at home. Stop wearing a Fitbit. Get rid of your Apple phone or your Apple Watch, I mean. Mind your cookies. And there's something you can do to completely screw up the algorithms. Oh, yes, and watch your webcams. Get pieces of paper on your webcams, okay? And there's another thing you could do that is incredibly vital, my friends. I want you to make sure that you are friends with people on the internet and social media. So not bots and trolls, but real people. And I want you to make sure that they politically disagree with you. This is one of the best ways that you can manage the algorithms that are trying to create an echo chamber to make you physically addicted, a dopamine hit, to get on social media and to experience vanity metrics, self-aggrandizement, to feel that sanctimony that feels so good. It's a drug. It's more powerful than cocaine. I want you to make sure that you screw up those algorithms by making sure your friends are not trolls, they're not bots, they're real people, and they disagree with you heartily.
Yes.
Well, I have to agree with you on that because not even just for those reasons, but for also the reason
echo chamber stuff.
Well, echo chamber stuff, which creates a division where because my bubble is all in agreement, you can then treat this other bubble not as human beings, but as the objective of what is, not the objective, but the target of what's all wrong with the world. And you can treat them not like human beings because within your bubble, everybody agrees. Outside your bubble, those people are not people because they don't have the right ideas. That's what I see with Twitter and Facebook and things of that nature. Yeah. And when you try to debate somebody, they either block you, get harsh and personal, or bring a Twitter mob instead of Discord, debate and talking and trying to learn from one another. It's devastating at times.
Yeah.
Just remember, Scotty, that a lot of those people are not human beings. So there's another thing the Comix division and I have spoken about off air that people are not aware of, and that is the sophistication, the absolute sophistication of chatbot software. And people do not realize they can have an entire conversation with somebody, think they have 2 kids and they live in Ohio and they have an Indiegogo account and they're on Facebook and their dog died last week. And meanwhile, it's a chat algorithm.
That's
from
crazy.
a bot.
Yeah, it is crazy. So this is interesting. So Ruth Korean is saying, I understand being prepared, but no offense, this ends when we say it does. Second, this is America. We have guns and people like the one guy who created the killdozer. We are uncontrollable for the time being. Take a look at Joe Biden's platform. What is what is he going after? The first thing he's going after is your guns. And this goes into another part of my video where I talk about, and I'll say it here because everybody needs to hear it. You need to become an activist for your own rights. Okay. You need to educate yourself on the Biden's policies. It's looking like he's going to be president. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's pretty much a done deal at this point. So you need to understand what he's trying to achieve. You need to go to the Biden campaign's website, look at what he's wanting to do, look at the whole thing with gun control. Yes, for now, we have the Second Amendment that stands in the way, but we have a president who is going to try and actively dismantle the Second Amendment as much as possible. Banning all online sales of firearms, banning all online sales of ammunition, which is basically the only way you can get it right now, banning all online sales of firearm accessories. So he wants Beto O'Rourke to be his gun czar. And as we all know, Beto O'Rourke said that, hell yes, we want to take your AR-15s and AK-47s. So yes, we have them for now. And yes, we do need to stand up and say no. But we as American citizens need to be very, very careful of.
And if you voted for
happens.
Biden and you don't, and you want to hear, or you're just somebody who wants to hear a completely nonpartisan Canadian point of view that's just scholarly, it's not political. What Comics Division said, minus all of the political stuff and the gun stuff, is true. I'm here because I want you to be aware of the things that you need to do, the things that you really need to care about. You need to care about bots and trolls. You need to care about sophisticated chatbot software. You need to care about RNA diseases that are caused through zoonotic bushmeats and wet markets and this international bush market trade. You need to be aware of cookies. You need to be aware of this second industrial revolution, this digital revolution that's going to be upon us. And you need to make sure that you stay on those issues and you don't allow these bots and these sophisticated chatware programs to lead you astray, to worry about things that you should not be worried about, because we have a real surveillance cloud hanging over us right now.
It is, and it's very
needs
scary
to be dealt with, and people need to stay on the issues. Don't be deterred from the actual issues that are facing you, that interfere with your health, your safety, and your liberty. And those things are completely non-political.
Yes, absolutely. Scott?
Yeah, I got to get going.
All right.
Yeah, got to get up early for work. But this was fun. Thank you for having me on Comics. My friend Briggs over there, this is cool that we got to stream because it's been a long time. So I hope everyone has a good night. Scott from Sporky News Podcast. We have 2 streams, Wednesday and Saturday, The Dump, where we talk about topics that affect everybody. So it's not just fandom. And then tonight I just did my Game of Thrones book club. We just started a Clash of Kings, but check it out. Try to teach YouTube a lesson because they keep stealing subscribers from me every time I hit a certain number. I want to see if I can get past that number one of these freaking days because it's been 6 months. Thank you, my brother.
You're welcome, dude. Thanks for stopping by. I've been trying to get you on again for quite some time. So
yeah, man, awesome. And the week after Christmas, I'll be available. So we'll do a couple shows. We'll get in touch.
Sounds good.
Take care, Scotty. It was so good to be on there with you, sweetheart. And don't work too hard tomorrow. Get some sleep, hey?
I'm going to try. Take care.
Bye,
Take care, Scott. Okay, so Tree Rock Creations. When are kiosks going to be installed in fast food drive-thrus? I don't know. It's maybe in the near future. I mean, who's to say? Here's the good news is that when we have machines, we still need to have people to maintain the machines.
We do. That's funny because, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole here, but that's one of the reasons why I don't like the new Star Trek is, it's all science fantasy. It's not science fiction. And of course, science fiction is rooted in reality. And you can't run a ship unless you have a crew to run it, right? So, we are ultimately in control of this if we don't get led down the garden path towards issues that are non-issues. If you really want to talk with your government right now and you really want to affect some change, start asking your politicians about this 47% job loss, where all of these jobs are going to be disappearing in the next 14 years. Half the population is going to be out of work. What are people going to do about this? What are your government leaders going to do about this? And you need to understand aggregated data. You need to understand that you have a little gnome that lives in your pocket and on your wrist and in your wallet, and together they converge to make a dossier about you. And what are you going to do about that? It's time to start leaving those cell phones at home, putting the Fitbits away in the drawer, putting away those Apple Watches.
Yes, and that's the thing. It's funny that you mentioned the whole thing with the Apple Watch. I mean, this is the watch I recently purchased, which is just a dumb watch.
Good.
There's it does have some form of it's atomic time, but it's not like transmitting my data or anything.
Well, see, the thing is, Comix, is that I'm actually concerned. Once all of this data is aggregated and it's sold to a corporation, they're not beholden to the same thing a medical board is. So
or the government. Yeah.
You and I, we talked about this before. They're building a dossier on you. Well, what if we don't stay on top of this and we don't stay engaged with the issues? And 20 or 30 years from now, you're denied an insurance package at work because your phone or your Fitbit or your wristwatch reported on you that you go to the liquor store 3 times a week. And this is really scary stuff, because
it is. It's very scary.
What if you're a Costco member and you're picking up the wine for your family or for your sister's restaurant or something? This data is fallible. It's not always correct. It's subject to hacking and cracking. It's not good. It's not good, guys.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too that you haven't necessarily touched on yet. What you just did is the idea, because they're collecting all this data. What happens when there's a massive data hack? We've seen this before with several of the big credit agencies. I totally forgot who, but it happened like a couple years ago.
Yeah, in 2013, we had a similar thing happen.
Telefax?
US Equifax, maybe?
Equifax, that's it.
Yeah, and somebody in government had left a USB at a bus stop or something to that nature. You'd have to look into the details. And on it were, I don't know, you'd have to look into the details, but there were tens of thousands of social insurance numbers on that. And that's the same as your social security number. Your SSN is the equivalent to our SIN. And so, and this is why when people were like, I'm going on Parler, this is going to be great, it's going to be wonderful. I don't have any problems with Parler. I think it's great that Parler has been created for the millions and millions, literally half of the American population that's conservative. But I do have big questions for Parler, because of course they're looking for images of your ID. And of course, when people were talking with me about this, I strongly cautioned them not to provide their social insurance number, their social security number, a picture of their passport or their license to Parler.
This is why I don't want to
hacking and cracking.
Yeah,
because it's dangerous.
That's why I'm cautious about Parlors. I'm not going to send them a picture of my ID. It's like that's
no.
That's not a good idea. I know. I understand the purpose behind it.
But millions of Americans have Parler.
And they're like, well, they already have my data. It's like, well, why would you want to continue to give them your data? That's not a good attitude to have. It's like the whole thing. Well, if you don't have anything to hide, well, fuck, no, I don't have anything to hide. But doesn't mean I don't want privacy. Toxic Man flew for $5. Does this mean the Great Reset is going to be more like the Great Human Extinction? We need the hope for our future that Star Trek used to give us. And here's the thing. I mean, a lot of things like automation is a good thing. Not, all these jobs going away may not be a bad thing if we live in a post-scarcity world, which we don't. And that's kind of the big thing. When we live in a world where we're still constrained by resources or access to resources, things like automation can definitely be very, very dangerous, but you can't necessarily stop progress for starters. No. So I don't know.
But it was done for greed, right? Like these Silicon Six, these huge corporations that are running the world today. It's no conspiracy to say that they want us to put our carts back at the shopping center. And it's not because carts are dangerous to our cars or because it's impolite, but because they don't want to pay the cart boy anymore. And so now you've got somebody living in Montana who's 90 years old, who's pushing her cart in 2 feet of snow because we were told on social media that it's really important to put your cart back. And this is a metaphor that I'm using to drive home the point that it's the corporations who want to increase their profit margins. And that's why automation is happening in many segments of the job force, of the workforce, and your shopping experience. And
here's another thing too, that I'm not sure how this is going to play out. If you put 60% of the population out of work, how are you going to buy stuff? Corporate, that's not sustainable on the corporate side as well. Mm-hmm. This is where things I think get kind of tricky with automation and all these jobs disappearing. And unless there are jobs to replace them, companies are going to go out of business too. They're going to have product they can't move because nobody has money.
Yeah. Well, that's
even with UBI.
Yeah,
even with UBI.
Yes, this is true, but it is incredibly dangerous what's about to happen to us. And this is huge. This is as big as World War I, World War II, the Industrial Revolution. What is coming for us is going to make a massive shift in society. So getting back to Toxic Man Flu's super chat that he left for us there that we marqueed, great point. This is an opportunity for us to recognize the things that we as people want from our society. We tend to look at government as though government controls us, but government is merely a collection of ideas, and we elect those ideas. So like Toxic Man Flu was saying, this is our opportunity. If we stay educated, if we stay on task, if we address the real issues and not conspiracy theory, maybe this is the time for us to create something good.
Yeah, I agree. Now I gotta get this real quick because I know that Margie has the pop off, and the fact that it's a $99.99 super chat.
Woo!
Thank you, Margie. Again, whenever Margie pops in, she does this, and I don't know why she does it. Thank you, Margie. I do appreciate it. You're giving way too much money though. Just hopped in for a moment. We'll watch this tomorrow. On the road tonight, going to visit an old friend in need. I hope they're okay. Comix, love the platform. Rachel, looking forward to hearing your thoughts. Toxic Man Flu, you are a dear. Love you all. Thanks for stopping by, Margie. Thank you so much. Yes, she really is. And she's also a subscribe star supporter of mine. I do appreciate your support, Margie. Thank you very much.
And somebody who obviously cares about everyone in this community. What a beautiful person you are.
Absolutely, yes.
Wow,
she's
great.
Very lovely.
So generous and also thoughtful and kind. Thank you so much, Margie.
But yeah, I mean, going back to what we're talking about, I'm really big on self-reliance. That's why I think that people should have skills like learning how to garden, work with the hands, do things. One of my biggest concerns about going forward as humans is our removal from our food. I mean, and that's a huge thing, because I know that with our grandparents, most of them either grew up on farms or were just removed from it. We don't have that connection to our food like our forebears had, having a farm, slaughtering cattle, raising chickens, same thing. Yeah. They knew where their food came from. We don't. If that supply of food got cut off, how do people survive at that point?
Well, and the super farms are also helping to proliferate these RNA diseases, this zoonotic disease, these super farms with kilometers and kilometers of pigs cheek to jowl. It's quite scary.
Oops, I did not mean to highlight that. I was trying to scroll down. But this is something I thought was interesting when I was talking to my parents and my cousin. They both live out more kind of towards rural areas, and they actually purchased. My parents purchased like half a cow, and they have it like in their freezer, and they did a quarter. So they're actually buying meat from the people who actually produce it rather than going to a store, which I think is actually pretty smart.
It's pretty common here. I'm from Alberta, which they call the Texas of Canada. So Texas is like, it's our sister province or our sister state. So yeah, a lot of cattle ranching up here, and that is actually very, very common up here. It's normal to get a phone call from a friend of yours or even a neighbor that says, "Hey, you want to go in on a cow with me this year?" And heifers, quarter, third, whatever. Yeah, it's good to stay connected to where your food comes from. But getting back to that same point, Comix, you were talking earlier about being a prepper, and I think that people don't realize, I think a lot of emphasis has been put on how prepping is this extreme lifestyle. And that may be the case. Some people may be living an extreme prepper lifestyle. But at the same time, I don't think people realize that they live an extreme convenience existence, where if something went wrong, historically, we've had 2, 3, 4 weeks worth of food in the cellar. We used to keep apples in our attic, and even when the worms would get at them, of course, we'd turn them into alcohol and we'd eat the fresh ones. And we always had food around. Well, food isn't in abundance anymore. We live in a food insecure world.
Yes,
the
we actually really
right
do.
now is in a terrible situation where unprecedented numbers of people are going to the food banks in the United States because of what's happening with the vid. And so it's just really scary. So it's very easy, like I said, to get into this conspiracy theory stuff, but the truth is always much scarier than the conspiracy theory. So it's not extreme to prep. It's actually normal. Although, like I said, there are some extreme preppers. It's extreme to
anybody
of convenience where you have nothing in your home because something happens and you're screwed. And that's not normal. And we've never done that as a species.
Well, exactly. I think that if this year demonstrated anything, it is how fragile the just-in-time system is. I mean, look at the fact that you can't go to the store and buy Clorox wipes anymore. Right. At least where I'm at. I think that's still how it is over the country. We're now just getting these things back in. And we used to have like these huge containers, and now they're really, really small, which I think is pretty funny. But I mean, just like like I said, I was able to read the tea leaves. I was paying attention to what was going on. I knew people in Australia who already didn't have toilet paper. And this was like towards the end of February. And I was watching Tim Pool, and some stuff has been mulling around in my head. And I was like, I got to go to the store and get a bunch of food. And so I did. I went to the store. This is before the hit happened. It was like a week before. And I go to my wife. I'm saying, I'm going to go to the store and get some stuff. And she's like, why? Well, I was like, this COVID thing is getting pretty serious. She's like, well, it's been getting serious. It's like, I'm concerned about food runs. I'm going to go grab stuff. She's like, you worry about that right now? I was like, no, I know no one's going to be at the store right now. I know everything's going to be there. That's why I'm going. And then like a week later, she's like, I get it now. She still thinks I'm crazy.
The same thing happened on my side, and I think my husband was a little bit taken aback. I think he was quite frightened because he knows I'm an intellectual and an academic, so it's not like me to do something like that. And the minute that I heard this international news, because of course I'm always watching the international papers, I heard this information coming down the pipe about the bathroom tissue, pun intended. I decided that I was just going to go and make it happen. So I called a couple of places and had groceries delivered, and then went out and also bought groceries. But I didn't stockpile anything because I didn't want to hurt anyone in my community. I just wanted to make sure that I had 2 weeks worth of food in case we were locked down. And then sure enough, we were. But I'm constantly reminded of this hyper-convenient society we live in. And people don't think enough about the applied dynamics of our situation, the way that truck drivers are delivering our lives. I want to talk about essential workers. truck drivers make our two countries run. Without them, we don't have food.
Absolutely.
In the wintertime in Alberta, it's minus 58. Nothing's growing here. We were the coldest place on Earth, including Antarctica, 5 times last year. I think it was 5 times. You know, it's just, and here we have in the chat, we have 47 minutes past the hour. We have Marcus Trajan. Going to get worse with water shortages. You know what's going to get worse, Marcus, is refugees, people who are trying to escape extreme drought. And just like Comix said, there isn't going to be farming. So we're going to see a huge migration. People are just going to get out of these dead drought zones and move to places where they'll be able to get food. So yes, water shortage, it's definitely coming.
Yep. So M Tax Shark for $5. Good program, Comix Division. Thanks, Amen, on the Star Trek thoughts, RM Briggs.
Thank you so much.
STD is an STD. That's for sure.
It sure is.
Toxic Man Flu for $5. The first thing is making sure our vote, our true power is secured, confirmed, sacred, and secret. Fair, legal voting is the key to everything. Absolutely. That's my understanding is that the Canadians have figured it out on how when it comes to making sure that you have safe, secure elections. And there's a lot of verification that goes into vote counting in Canada.
Yeah, I've been a part of that process, and it's definitely a very rigorous process, and there is so much monitoring.
Yeah, I think that's pretty important. I'm hoping what happened this year with our election leads us to making sure that we ensure that we have safe, secure elections. If not, we're all kind of screwed. Yeah. Let's see here. There is another one I want to get from RFR for $2. Is Billy Bob still going in Red Deer?
Billy Buds we have in Edmonton. I think there's also a Billy Buds in Calgary. I don't know about Red Deer. Red Deer's a pretty small town.
I'm glad you knew what he was talking about, because I was like, I have no idea.
No, yes, bring all your Alberta questions here. The Texas of the North, I will field all of your Alberta questions.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that when it comes down to it, data wise, we need to make sure that we stop sharing things. And Facebook
is be aware of the way that you are hemorrhaging information, and don't think of it as, oh, I downloaded Snapseed and I downloaded Kindle and I downloaded these apps and I should just delete them all off my phone and move to Alaska. That's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is understanding how a dossier is built on you, and how these corporations and governments are sharing and selling your information to build that dossier. From the minute you wake up in the morning to the minute you put your head on the pillow, you are a consumer, and that data is being used against you. And there are physical means in which you can control it. And be aware of the power of the Silicon 6. Make sure that you try and be friends with people who disagree with you. This will mess up the algorithm. Remember, that algorithm is designed to act like cocaine, literally, to act like cocaine, to give you a dopamine hit for that echo chamber. And remember, to control your cookies, get rid of don't carry your phone around everywhere with you. And don't use the Apple Watch, and don't use a Fitbit.
There's another thing too.
Don't need your information.
That I agree with what you said about leaving your phone at home, but there's actually a better way of doing it. You can actually go and purchase a Faraday cage bag off of Amazon.
Yes.
And there's a guy named City Prepper I really like watching, and he talks about doing this. It's like, if you're not using your phone, just drop it in there, seal it up, and keep it in there for a couple hours and have it resurface again. That way you're kind of messing with them.
Yeah. But and not only that, What's really cool about that too, though, is if we're ever invaded by aliens and there's some type of EM pulse or something, you will have a working phone. No, I'm kidding, because all the satellites will be gone, but you know what I mean. Yeah, my husband actually knows how to build Faraday cage, and I think there are plans for how to build one online. And that's actually
I think you need like copper mesh, and that's really about it.
No, but teaching people about how it can't touch the walls and stuff. I mean, Comix. But yeah, that's actually what Comix Division just said is actually an incredibly intelligent and not even a funny thing. Wouldn't it be wonderful if every time you had a dinner party or every time you went to bed, you dropped your cell phone into a Faraday cage? That would be so brilliant. That's such a good thing.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I want to get, and it legit cuts it off, and it won't receive any kind of signal at all in there. Yeah. So the other thing too you could do is to turn off location services, because that's how they're tracking you. Now, the one thing that you need to be aware of is that whenever you get an update, it will get turned back on. So you constantly have to turn it off. But that's also the thing that allows you to use like your Google Maps or your Apple Maps or Waze or something like that.
And it's also important to realize that they all interact too, right? So you can have location working on Facebook, location working on Twitter, location working on Google Maps, location working on Netflix, and location working on the cell phone itself. Yep. So this is why these collected applications completely disintegrate your rights and your control. The terms of service and the terms of use. It's such a it's like a lasagna of tracking. There are so many of them on your phone, which is usually why I just tell people, try not to be so addicted to your phone, right?
Yes, big time. Yeah. Max Mercer cracks me up. I'm a connoisseur of black pills. This scream was exquisite.
What are black pills?
Okay. Are you familiar with the concept of being red pilled?
Isn't that from the Matrix? I vaguely remember.
It is, but it got adopted by like the God damn it, I'm totally blanking on it. The dark web, intellectual dark web types. The idea that being red pilled means you're having, you're seeing reality for what it is. The stuff that's going on with social media. You're being woken up. I don't say being woken up. You're becoming aware to the wokeness and all these things. That's been going on with like companies and entertainment and whatnot. So that's being red pilled. Being black pilled means that you've discovered that it's all hopeless. That there is no hope.
Yes, you are being black pilled right now. This is what I try to explain to people. This is why conspiracy theory is so dangerous. This is why these bots and trolls that take people down the garden path and try and distract them with BS instead of staying on top of the issues. Here we have an entire country that is now terrified of this vaccine. Meanwhile, this entire country should be absolutely livid, enraged by the bushmeat trade and enraged by this constant introduction of zoonotic disease, these RNA diseases into our society due to these wet markets, due to the trade in these exotic and endangered species. We should be so angry.
Absolutely. Okay. Robert Frey gave it a better definition. Black pill equals nihilism. to a degree. I would say it's more hopelessness than nihilism, but yeah, I mean that's kind of close, I suppose.
Yeah, I like the white pill, the optimism. I really appreciated a Toxic Man Flu's previous comment that if you understand history, especially communication historiography, which is something that I study, then you realize that we keep falling off the cliff of society as we knew it. And we're about to do that again. We're headed for the digital revolution, and it's going to mean that we're going to lose half of our jobs, and we are going to have to reconsider how we're going to operate our society. And I agree with TMF, Toxic Man Flu. I think that this offers us a grand opportunity if we stay on the actual issues to change our society for better. I believe what TMF said, and I think it's a great comment. I love him. He's great.
Yeah, he is. TM, I'm also a bit of a nihilist, but not in the nihilist in the negative sense that there is no meaning to life. It's like I believe there's no meaning to life. Therefore, you have to create your own meaning. So that's how I kind of view my nihilism, I suppose. But yeah, it's I think you're right about a lot of that stuff with the bushmeat. One of my biggest concerns with the vaccine is the fact that it's being rushed to market. There's a potential for a lot of issues with it. I think probably by the time it gets to us as individual citizens, it will maybe be okay. I don't know. I'm not terribly concerned about getting a vaccination for something that has a 99% survival rate, though.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I lost someone very dear and very close to me recently from COVID. So it's.
Well, I mean, it certainly happens. I'm not going to deny that people don't die. I mean, yeah.
So I'm very pro-vaccine, so I'm going to be getting the jab. But at the same time, I have chosen based on the data that I've looked at. I have chosen.
That's the big thing is. What I think is scaring people. Yeah, I think as long as it's optional, that's I don't have an issue with that.
Yeah.
What was causing people to freak out is the prospect of people saying this is going to be mandatory.
I don't think that will ever happen because Americans have guns and Canada has a Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So, I think that if you want to get the vaccine, get the vaccine. If you don't want to get the vaccine, don't get the vaccine.
That's how I prefer.
I've looked,
yeah.
As a certified researcher through a very, very good university, a top 100 university, I can definitely tell you that I've looked things over, and I am very excited about the Moderna vaccine. I think it's great. That's the one I'm going to be asking for, and that actually comes from a company that was previously known as Mode RNA Therapeutics. So obviously specializing in that RNA. So Moderna out of Massachusetts, Cambridge, Massachusetts. I think that will be a wonderful, wonderful jab to get. It's the jab I trust, and that's what's going in my arm.
The thing that I find concerning is where you start seeing private companies saying, "Oh, in order to go and attend this concert, you have to have the vaccination." I think this is where a lot of people's fears are coming from, is when you're seeing it being driven by companies saying, "Oh, in order to," it's like the whole thing with the mask, right? It's like in order to come and go grocery shopping, you have to have the vaccine and you have to have proof of vaccination.
I know, but I think that comes from. I think that also comes from a lot of bots and trolls and disinformation.
I hope you're right.
Other countries, because you and I both know. Especially now that I know that you have a degree in anthro, I definitely know that you know that this is not going away overnight. And so that would be a presupposition that the vaccine is a cure. And of course it's not. We are not going to be out of this vid problem for probably 2.5, maybe 3 years. So I don't think that it will get to the point where somebody says, well, either you have the vaccine or you don't come in, because even if you do have the vaccine, it's not a silver bullet. We're not taking down the werewolf with one silver bullet and the legend's over. This is going to be something that we're going to be grappling with in a very ugly way for an extended period of time.
I agree. However, I do have to point out there have been articles that have been written about this. The one I saw recently was Ticketmaster. And they are saying that in order for you to go and attend a concert, you have to prove that you've had the vaccination. And this is where things get scary too, when you start limiting people's mobility. Like if you can't hop on a plane anymore, you have to prove with your papers that you've been vaccinated. That's where things get very kind of scary and Orwellian. And this isn't just like Twitter bots that are saying this. This is actual articles from. But I want to.
I don't want to upset anyone, but I just want to reverse that on you and let you know that that I actually went to university with somebody who was in the hot zone during the Ebola outbreak.
Oh yeah.
So I just want to know what you think of that in reverse, because here we had an RNA that was quite scary, and we said, we're going to limit who can come in and who can come out, and you have to have a test, and you have to make sure that you weren't exposed and stuff like that. So this is a serious medical thing, and
I agreed. I don't want to downplay that, but I think that it depends. I'm not unreasonable, right? If we actually have something that is legitimately like killing like a third of our population, obviously then we need to make sure that we're not spreading things around. But it's not that scenario. We haven't hit there yet. This isn't the Black Death of the Middle Ages, thankfully.
No, it's not, but it is a lot like the Spanish flu. And I think that if you're worried about that kind of stuff, like especially with Ticketmaster and stuff like that, a lot of these people are going to slit their own throats. I hate to say it, but it's just going to be like the theater, the big theater chains. If you do not give people what they want, and you don't give people what they need, and you lord your power over them, you will eventually, hang yourself. You give an idiot enough rope, and they'll hang themselves.
Yeah, they'll hang themselves.
And we saw that
I would
with
say, I'm not going to say these things are necessarily going to happen. These are the things I'm concerned about and I'm cautious about. I'm not saying that these are.
And you know what?
Going to take effect. I'm not a mind reader, right? I can't predict the future. So, but no. I think we as people need to be cautious of these type of things.
I totally agree with you. But I also think that it's very important that people continue to have a dialogue with real people like you.
Yeah.
And not having a dialogue with the literally millions and millions and millions. Over half of Ellen DeGeneres' followers on Twitter are bots. So just make sure that you're not getting your information from sophisticated bots that are there to promote disinformation. No, I don't mean you.
This is actually from articles.
I mean, I know. In the chat,
right.
Because it's so important that you are researching and that you're getting your information from actual human beings, right? Because there are a lot of countries out there that do want to harm us. They want to harm us in the West. They want to harm our way of life.
Absolutely.
And so, I just want everybody to be empowered by a peer-reviewed knowledge. And so we are able to maintain our standard of living the way we like to live it, and something that we in the West have worked very hard for.
I agree. And it's also the reason why I tell people, even when we have these discussions, even when I say something in a video or on a live stream, don't take what I have to say as the gospel. Do your own research. And that is so important. And it's also very important to not just consume one source, look at the things that contradict it as well to see if you can find what is actually legit and what is not. Because confirmation bias is something that is very real. And it's something I'm definitely always concerned about when I talk about things about, am I confirming other people's bias? Because the one thing when you build an audience and you say something the audience doesn't like, and it goes against their confirmation bias, your audience will turn against you. And something that as a YouTuber, you have to be very aware of. But here's the thing. I'd rather be honest with people and give you my opinion. And if you don't like it, and you're like, unsub. Hey, I get it. That's just how the game is played. But the main thing is I want to make sure that, people out there, don't just take my word for it. We're going to disagree. Raquel and I don't agree on everything, but we can still have a good conversation. We can have a polite conversation. We can learn from one another's different opinions, which is the thing that is so crazy that we live in this world right now, specifically with social media, that, we don't agree. You're the enemy. I don't want to listen to you. Goodbye. Yeah, well, it's like that is so the mark of terrible.
An educated mind is being able to entertain a thought without embracing it. And I think that we've forgotten about that. We've created this sort of religious circumstance where everyone must be converted. And of course, as a scholar, I definitely embrace people who have a differing opinion than myself. But speaking to the larger point of the social media, though, it's very important for the folks at home to realize that there are some things that happen with you neurologically that you can't control. And it's covered in a book by Nicholas Carr, and it's called The Shallows. And there he sort of speaks about the neurology. I believe that's the book. There are several of them where if you plant a seed of doubt in someone's mind, even if it's a specious claim and it's totally false and perhaps even unbelievable, because of the way the human mind works, the human mind will, it's hard for the human mind to shake that doubt. So it's just be very, that's why I tell everyone, make sure you're listening to people who disagree with you.
Yeah,
and make sure
absolutely.
If you're going to follow through with your body, your soul, your mind, and your life, make sure that stuff is peer reviewed. And peer review means that a whole bunch of scholars got together, argued, kicked, and spit at one another intellectually in order to figure out the rigors, to be very rigorous with the information and figure out if it's correct. And in that, I would love to suggest a book if you are looking to completely educate yourself on aggregated data, how it works, it's not academic. This is absolutely applied in the simplest terms where you can totally understand the way that companies and corporations and governments are collecting your information and sharing it. I would like you all to buy a book called Transparent Lives, Surveillance in Canada. And it's through the Athabasca University Press. You can get the book on Amazon. It's not just for Canadians. And it is such a great book to simply demonstrate how the companies are doing this, how they're sharing the information, and not in a theoretical way, in a way that a regular person can understand exactly how they're accessing all of the different channels to get your information, how they're putting it together, how they're interpreting it, the risks of how they're interpreting it and what they're selling it for, how they're storing it, how it makes you vulnerable, who they're selling it to, and why. So you need to
shoot me that link so I can post it in the description, because I just searched for it and I couldn't find it. But
okay, let me just go and get that. So there's that. And then there's another book by Bruce Schreiner called Data and Goliath.
I heard about that. Yeah.
This is an excellent scholar. He is just absolutely top notch. He will, and he writes so beautifully, and he's so comprehensible. This is someone who will teach you about how these things are transpiring in the United States. But let me go and get you that link.
That's cool. I'll hit some super chats real quick. Riff Korean 92 for $10. Considering starting a YouTube channel. Spoke to CC about this. He mentioned a way to keep a YouTube channel separate from the Gmail I use forever, in case I get canceled. Yeah, I mean, you just create a new Gmail account and just do it that way. Also, how safe are VPNs from the government? I think VPNs are about as safe as, well, it depends on whether they hand off their information to the government, right? I mean, VPNs I think are good. Most of them say that they don't give your information to companies or governments. So, buyer beware, take it for what it's worth. There are definitely reputable VPN services out there. It all comes down to do your research, but I do highly recommend using a VPN. And see, the thing jumped on me.
Sorry to interrupt you. I just sent that to your Twitter.
Okay.
And the name and the article above it is that article where the psychiatrists are speaking online about whether or not they're going to start using the stuff they're collecting.
I misunderstood you. I thought you said lies. It's lives. Okay. Yep. Okay.
Transparent lives, surveillance, and it says surveillance in Canada, but I want you all to know that it all applies to the way that the chain of how your information is exchanged in the U.S. as well. And then, of course, there's...
I am dropping these in the chat so people can go and find these books.
Yes. And there's also an article in the New Yorker that talks about the limits of reason. And that is a really great article that for you to data mine, for you to just get in there and get all those links, because it's a treasure trove of neurologists and neuroscientists talking about how if they give us a little bit of doubt, how it can paralyze us and spiral us into conspiracy theory to the point where we will reject even things that regard our own safety. So it's super important to realize what's happening to our bodies, what's happening to our minds, and what's happening to our information.
Okay, so I dropped both those links in the chat. I'm adding it to the description right now. And let me get the one that you sent, Raquel. That way you guys have the ability to go and check these books out. And yeah, I mean, I heard about Data and Goliath, and that's definitely a book that I've been wanting to go and check out.
Oh, yeah, just blow through it in a couple of hours. I read it when I was in graduate school when it first came out, and I was just blown away. And it's where I learned that we had actually gotten to the point where we had exabytes. I couldn't believe it. That's what's enabling all of this between you and I, Comics Division. I know that this is going to sound super nerdy and also
no, it absolutely is. I agree with you.
The space, being able to store this amount of data, this is the only thing that's driving this. If we didn't have the ability to store this much data, and Bruce talks about it in his book, none of this would be happening. But that ability to store it and be able to massage it and be able to sell it and move it in with other data to create a dossier, just size matters here. This is info porn. Size matters. This is the biggest Steely Dan in the love shop of the exabytes. It's a huge thing.
Well, the thing that's so frightening, the thing that's so frightening about it, all this data that people used to collect, companies used to collect, it used to be ephemeral, right? I mean, this data didn't get stored like it was. It's stuff that was collected and eventually, it dropped off. It was ephemeral. It wasn't meant to stick around. But the issue is, going back to what you're talking about with the advent of bulk storage. Yeah. Well, now it's just, we can keep all this stuff. We can keep all this data. We can. The main thing that I think that people need to understand, another issue where this kind of came from, was being able to store unstructured data. And if you know anything about databases, they basically are structured data. You have an ID column, which is usually numerical. At the time, it was numerical. Now they've been replaced with something else. That's where you'd have your name, your phone number, stuff like that. And then you can go and query that data using SQL, which is structured query language. But then you start getting into NoSQL, which is unstructured data, where you're able to go and just collect all this stuff, and you can version the way it's structured, and you can render it in different ways. This is where stuff like MongoDB came in, CouchDB. And the benefit of this unstructured data is that the reads are really, really fast. Writes are slow. The problem with SQL is that you can have quick writes, but when you start getting large amounts of data, reading it became very, very difficult. So now you have this means of being able to take this unstructured data and then go and querying it using things like big data, finding these things. And it's very, very frightening. And the unlimited storage capacity which is what has started driving the collection of all this data rather than getting rid of it. Because a lot of the stuff, it took up space in a database. And at some point in time, you had to purge it, right? Because if you don't, it just gets slower and slower and slower, and you run out of room too. Yeah. So, big data.
Wait until you get to the chapter in Data and Goliath where Bruce talks about how he was blown. Well, he wasn't blown away, or was he blown away? I forget how he describes it. It's been a while now since I read it, but when he describes how the public would feel if the public figured out that the American government was selling the private information, some incredibly sensitive, aggregated data about its citizens to another foreign government. And just you must. There's such a huge learning curve here, and I think that you have been a wonderful host and helped to facilitate so many of these ideas, so many of these tentacles that are coming off of this issue. But really, in order for folks to truly grapple with the gravity of the situation and all of the controlled and uncontrolled variables, just imbibing those two books, The Transparent Lives and Data and Goliath, it's transformative for the human mind and to understand the actual state of it.
Yeah. Okay, Paramount Vulcan for $4.99. Don't take the black pill. The powers that be want you to feel defeated and hopeless. I completely agree with you. That's the main thing we don't want to be is to capitulate, feel hopeless, and that's the reason why you need to educate yourself and fight for your rights. That's the reason why I say you need to become an advocate, an activist for your own rights.
Yeah,
that is very important. And data privacy is definitely one of those things that you need to become an advocate for.
And start using the real words. Don't speak in all of this for everyone at home, in all this conspiracy theory mumbo jumbo crap. Be very direct and show how informed you are. Don't say the powers that be, though I mean no insult when I'm saying that. What I'm saying is, put your finger down on these companies and hold them there. Don't let them wiggle out of your grip. Say the Silicon Six, say Amazon, Facebook, Google, Netflix, Apple, Microsoft. These are the people. These are the people who are wheeling and dealing your data and your consumer patterns. You are just a series of patterns to them, and you need to take that stuff back. Take that information back, demand that that information be yours, not theirs.
Absolutely. Blal Comics Division unsubbed. How dare you be fair-minded and reasonable? You are disgusting. Critical thinking has almost vanished. I kind of agree.
It's absolutely true. If you
Toxic.
want to learn,
no, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. Oh, I was just going to say, and you were talking about the farming thing. If you wanted to sort of read something very short on the farming thing, there's a story of mine on Amazon. You can get it through your Kindle device as well, and it's called Charmaine, and the Charmaine, and then : the lift. So if you read that, it'll be an eye-opener for you on what I believe about the whole farming issue. Anyway.
So Toxic Influence says, I tried to unsub for you once and was struck by lightning. Convince me you were a witch doctor.
Isn't he marvelous? I don't know what we would do without TMF. He lights up every time.
Tox is great. Yeah, he is. He's been around for quite some time. How long have you been following my channel, Tox? It feels like it's been over a year at this point, but man, love this guy. He is absolutely hilarious. Yeah,
complete sweetheart and an amazing wrench. Like, he's such a good wrench. He really gets people going, and he goes from like barroom humor, your bartender telling the dirtiest jokes, to a really thought-provoking and sensitive things that people who don't know him very well don't expect from him. But he will say something very intelligent and very thought-provoking and very close to your heart 1 minute, and then tell you the worst dirty joke ever directly after that. So he's marvelous to have around. He's a card. Wonderful person.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Tia Martin says 2021 will be a surreal year. I agree. I'm waiting for the alien invasion at this point.
Did you hear about this Israeli security specialist?
I did. I heard about that. I have not looked into it, but I did hear about it.
He's 87 years old. Maybe he fell down and hit his head. We don't know, but he's basically saying, like, there's a federation.
Yeah, I know that the United States and Israel is hiding it from the world because we're not ready.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not ready.
If that was actually true, I would believe that. I don't think we're ready.
No, I don't think we're ready at all. I actually don't think we're ready. Not even slightly ready.
Yes, absolutely. Max Mercer, use a VPN based in Northern Europe. I actually have several VPN accounts.
Yeah.
One actually came with one of my news services.
And be careful when you're gaming. In Transparent Lives, they actually talk about that. There's actually a part here that I talk to people about all the time. It's actually on page 22 and page 23 of Transparent Lives. And it talks about how when you're doing the live gaming, that the national security agencies use online games to capture personal information. When you log on to your favorite game, the manufacturer also records the minutia of your online behavior, which it uses for product development and target marketing. The company also sells the data to other corporations eager to learn as much as possible about the consumption patterns of the user.
You talk about online games like the Facebook games or the phone app games?
This entire chapter just deals with all online games, the way that they're bringing information, and it also talks about what's really funny is they talk about how these game manufacturers make sure that they have your physical location, your phone number, and they even constantly monitor the status of your family's Wi-Fi. So that's also something that's very interesting. So like I said, big learning curve here. I can't turn this into a graduate level seminar, but I can point you to books that I teach with. And I can point you to books that will arm you, and you will feel like a Jedi when you're done with these 2 books, folks.
Max Mercer says Raspberry Pi. I've never actually messed with the Raspberry Pi. Linux, even Linux also has the telemetry service stuff as well, especially when you start getting into the closed source stuff like Red Hat. So just be aware, no operating system at this point is free from this nonsense. Mm-hmm. But the main thing is going and finding out ways of going and securing it. Mm-hmm. And again, this is some stuff I want to cover on the other channel too, about making sure that we don't give data to the people we don't want to have, which is basically Amazon, Microsoft, Apple,
Netflix, Amazon, Facebook,
Twitter,
Google, Netflix, Apple, Microsoft. These are the Silicon Six. These are the people who are 100%, absolutely 100% trying to shape the things you believe and the things you think. And they're doing it in order to please you so that you will become addicted to your phone. We know that there is a physiological connection, a psychological and emotional connection between you and your phone. It's like crack cocaine. When you're getting that dopamine hit, you want more, and there's a cost.
Yeah, there is. Are you familiar with CGP Grey?
No, I'm not.
He's a YouTuber. A couple of years ago, he did a video called "This Video Will Make You Angry," and it talks about, in a nutshell, like I think he released it like 3 years ago, about the whole thing with clickbait, rage bait, stuff like that. When you anger gets shares, and that's the reason why digital media, online media functions the way it is. It's the reason why a lot of like online articles coming from The Guardian, the Mary Sue, all these other outlets all deal in rage bait because it gets clicks, it gets shares. You are more likely to share something that you are mad about, angry about. I know I'm guilty of it. Then let's say, hey, this is really cool. Mm-hmm. So it's a really fascinating video. And which is pretty funny because if I scroll all the way down, I have to jump a lot of comments. I can't endorse
something that I haven't seen, but I will tell you this: that is 100% true. That the algorithms do work in that way, but it's not working the way people think. It's not like, okay, well, we want this person to be liberal, so we're going to start sending this person all this liberal stuff. It doesn't really work that way. How it actually works is you demonstrate your predilections, the things that you have a penchant for, the things that you desire, and you start to whisper to these platforms the things you like. And what ends up happening is the algorithm puts all that information together and it yells back to you. And the reason why it's yelling back to you is because it loves you and it wants you to be addicted to it. It wants you to imbibe ads. It wants you to buy things. It wants you to use. And this is how they make billions and billions off of us. So no social media is free.
No, it absolutely is not. And yes, Eric, I'll talk to Mark and see about getting him on. Is there a particular topic you want me to have him on for? I've only met Mark a couple of times, but super cool dude. But yeah, I'll talk to him, see if he wants to come on. Let's see if there's anything in here comment-wise I missed. Oh, there is that super chat. Let me see if I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything before I get to that. So Fat Steven Seagal is asking me for $2 Canadian, no t-shirt. What is this, the Twilight Zone stuff? As I told everyone earlier, I went out to have dinner with my family. I met with my parents and my cousin, and I wore a dress shirt. I wouldn't say it's a dress shirt. I wore a button-up shirt, and I just didn't bother taking it off. So I figured, yes, it would be a nice, interesting change to have people see me not wearing just a t-shirt. So,
and I bet your wife loved it.
She did. It was actually a shirt that she bought me. She's like, "Is that one of the shirts that I bought you?" I was like, "Yes, it is. I did it. I did that intentionally." Yeah. Did it make the wife happy? So
yeah. I love it when my husband looks dapper. He looks, when he dresses up, I think he looks terrific. It's always like, hey, look what I got.
One of the sucky things about living in Texas when it's hot all the time, it's like I'm more.
Oh, you are in Texas?
Yes, I am more conducive to dress like a slob. Shorts, t-shirt.
Oh my goodness! So you're in the Alberta states.
The Alberta states. Yes, I live in the United States of Alberta.
You do.
Or your Albertan counterpart. Yes.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, wonderful. That's great. Good.
I love Texas. Texas is a great state. It's way too fucking hot.
That's what all my friends in Texas tell me.
Yeah. That jumped on me. What type of restaurant? It was Chinese food.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah, my parents like doing the Christmas story thing, and obviously it's not Christmas yet, but at the very end of the Christmas story, when the turkey's ruined, so they go have Chinese Christmas.
Yeah.
So my parents like doing that. It's kind of funny.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. I heard that's actually a Jewish tradition as well. A lot of Jewish people in the Jewish community,
I'm sure they probably do.
They do. They go
because they don't celebrate Christmas.
Well, some of them do, but they don't want to make it religious. So I think it's very sweet. It's really wonderful.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny. My parents are funny. I want you to have Martha to talk about the Great Reset and internet having your privacy. Okay. Yeah, I can get them on. We'll get them on. Y'all get parked cars, because that's where I talk about that stuff. I try and keep Thursday chill with the stupid stuff of entertainment. Nick is pointing out that it's cultural appropriation to have Chinese food. You're canceled.
Yeah, that's getting a little ridiculous, isn't it? I've heard some people making some very sad comments, and yeah, I'm from Canada, where people are really, really working hard for multiculturalism. So it's just so bizarre to read people saying stuff like that when up here we're trying to get everyone to celebrate everyone's cultures instead of putting walls up around them.
Yeah, it's and that's the thing that drives me crazy about that, is that culture is meant to be shared. Yes. And we are working so hard to undo that right now. There's a lot of things that you're a Gen X or growing up, being told color doesn't matter. Judge a person by their content of the character, not the color of their skin. That is something that is so ingrained into me. And now we're being told, oh, you need to judge people by the color of their skin. And it's like, what? No.
Yeah, things really went downhill after Gen X. Do you remember when like the hottest thing to wear to high school was the United Colors of Benetton? And like everybody was like so hyped up about like being this multicultural person. And yeah, it's really sad because it's so hard to see a world divided after our generation worked so hard to have a world united.
It drives me crazy. I mean, it's like looking at the sacrifices that happened in the 60s with Martin Luther King and the other people who are fighting for civil rights. And we're just fucking tossing that shit right out the door.
Yep. So true.
Yeah. So I know. What I meant, it's 11:34 where you are. Yes, I am in Central Time. So yes, so that would be an accurate statement.
I can't even believe we've been on for 2 hours. It has not felt like 2 hours. It's literally felt like 20 minutes. The time just flew by. Just flew by.
Yeah, it did. It was because we have such an interesting topic to talk about. And
yes.
Yeah.
And you're a great host. I always have so much fun with you. I just basically like met you when you did the Pegasus Actual podcast.
That's right.
And I couldn't believe how wonderful you were. Not only did you research the episode, but you had so many great comments. I just had to come on over here and see what you had going on, because I've always watched your channel. I've always watched your channel. As soon as I found out about it, I think I found out about your channel through Drew.
Right. Yeah. It would make sense.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. When we're talking about like a TV show, I don't want to show up and be like, I have no idea what happened this episode. Right. So it's like, I had to squeeze in the episode just so it's like, I have Drew on all the time. And I felt bad. I haven't been on his channel before, and he invited me. And it's like, and I know it means a lot to Drew. So yes. I wanted to show up. So I was like, okay, let me squeeze as much of the episode as I can to kind of remember what happened with it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like, oh yeah, that's right. That's what happened this episode. And it's like, as I tell people with my BSG story, when I saw the miniseries that came out, I was not happy with the show because I was a big fan of the original, and like I said, I'm not a fan of reboots. I think reboots are lazy, and
most of the people from our generation feel that way. I don't understand why people don't get that. Like our generation, it's seen as lazy, dumb, and stupid, and you mock people who do sequels and reboots. Anyways, go ahead.
And just coming off the 90s, where we had a lot of reboot movies. We had the Flintstones movie, we had the Beverly Hillbillies, Starsky and Hutch, and a lot of the problems I have with reboots is the idea that you don't add anything to it, or you just make a joke out of it. Starsky and Hutch was a series I used to watch as a kid, and watching and seeing the movie, I was like, this is dumb. It's like, I don't want to watch this. I wouldn't say it's disrespecting the property, but that's kind of how it came off to me. And then
they made it kind of campy.
Yes. And it wasn't campy.
I didn't like it. I distinctly remember it feeling like they were kind of like mocking it, like it was kind of campy. And I was like, this is not the Starsky and Hutch I remember. I loved that show. Some people, it was Cagney and Lacey. I was Starsky and Hutch. I just absolutely loved Starsky and Hutch. And so I shut it off. I couldn't even get through it. Comics, I couldn't watch the whole thing. I was just like, nope.
Oh man. When I went to go see the G.I. Joe movie, the live action one that came out a number of years ago, that was like legitimately the first movie I wanted to walk out of because of how terrible it was.
Yeah.
So, but
ruining our childhoods. That's all they're doing. Ruining our childhoods, our teenage years, our high school years. They're just ruining it all. Just crapping on all of it.
Yeah, I got to get little Poet Boy's comment here. He says that's how I felt about 21 Jump Street movie. I didn't like it one bit. I hear you, dude. I really do. I thought it was funny because it mocked reboots, but that was really about it. As far as like, I love 21 Jump Street. It was cool to see like everybody in it. Well, the majority of the people, but yeah, it's reboots are terrible. But ultimately, the Ronald D. Moore's Battlestar Galactica did win me over, and it was such great storytelling.
Yes.
And like I said, I'm not looking forward to the reboot of the reboot.
No.
And it's like it's just it's lazy.
It is, and
yeah,
it's just so wrong. First of all, Ronald D. Moore is very talented, and he was a part of the whole DS9, and so I'm not surprised that the reboot was so great. But it was also the fact that they approached the fans with so much respect by, instead of saying, "Hey, this is Battlestar Galactica," they were like, "This is Battlestar Galactica reimagined."
Yeah.
And so we were like, "Oh, okay, so you're going to borrow some ideas and you're going to do something different. Okay, I'll give it a chance." But the thing is that reboots being good, like actually good, this goes for sequels as well, is so rare. It's like, it's like a white moose. It's not something you're going to see every day. So, they need to just stop doing it. But they're addicted to it because what it is it's highly palatable stuff. It's stuff they know that sells. It's stuff that they know that the audience relates to. And so they just keep marketing this stuff back to us. And it's very regurgitative. I liken it to like cows or like camel stomachs. We just keep chewing the same meal, taking it down to one of our stomachs, throwing it back up and chewing on it again, like cud, like cows and camels do. Just give us a new story. I just want a new story.
Mm-hmm. And in case you haven't read it, Convergent Colony is not a BSG reboot, but is considered an homage. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, there's like lots of things, like ideas I borrowed from, other sources to tell stories. I mean, there's nothing wrong with homage. I think homage is a great form of flattery when it comes to the original source material. But at the same time, that's what Kurtzman is saying with his stuff. Oh, it's an homage. It's like, no, you're fucking ripping people off. Yeah, it's like you ripped off the plot of Mass Effect, dude. It's like you legit ripped off the plot, the Mass Effect for Picard. Excuse me, Picard.
It's P-hard. It's just absolute crap. It's crap. Rest in peace, Star Trek 1966 to 05, the end. It's just crap. I don't want to see any more of it. Is it's cultural vandalism, and it's terrible.
Was I able to check out Songbird yet? I remember you mentioning that. No, I have not. I don't even remember what it was. Oh, that's the movie. Okay. No, I have not. I have not watched it yet. That's right. Yeah, cultural vandalism. I really like that. I like Outlander. To even though it was a Harlequin romance. Yeah, well, that's takes all sorts. RoboCop, not cyberpunk corn. It's a form of cyberpunk. I wouldn't call it cyberpunk per se, but it's definitely got some themes there. All right, I say we about wrap it up. We've gone on for 2 hours, and I have a video I need to finish editing.
Yeah. So, well, thank you for having me. I had a great time. Thank you for asking me to come and do this with you. I think it's really cool that you're interested in this stuff and that you're teaching people about it. And had a great time. Thank you so much. Once again, I totally enjoyed your company. I think you were such a great host and such a gentleman. And,
I tried.
Yeah, I think you're wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Is there anything you'd like to plug? Your book or?
Sure. If folks are looking for my nonfiction, they can find it at academia.edu. You can find my science fiction. So if you like Edgar Allan Poe, The Twilight Zone, The Outer Limits, you can find my science fiction at RM Briggs at Amazon.com or on your Kindle device or through your Kindle app.
And let me see if I can go and summon a link for that real quick. So it's RM Briggs.
Yeah.
Okay, so. And Amazon.com.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
That way I can.
Internationally. Yeah.
Why is this not coming up? Did I spell your name right?
I don't know. Yes, TMF, thank you so much. Yeah, I have some stuff on Amazon Kindle. Yep, Jack, The Light on the Porch, Lila, Vincent's Libertine Gallery, and Charmaine, The Lift. All are science fiction short stories. And yeah, in the same vein as The Outer Limits and Twilight Zone and Edgar Allan Poe.
Now, I found one of your books, and what I'll do is I'll just post that, and that way people can find the rest of your stuff that way. So, all right. And here we go right into the chat. So there you go, folks.
Thank you so much. And I want to thank everybody who came here today to listen to us talk and just add so much to the conversation. You guys were sensational tonight. And it's so nice to see so many different people from so many different walks of life with so many different opinions coming together to speak about all of these issues so positively and exchange these ideas and exchange this information. I think you all are absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, everyone. And we will leave you with some koalas in the rain.
Koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain. No fucks given, koalas